to the fine print, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, coming at you with a banger today, as usual. And as usual, I also want to just send a couple of shout outs. Whoa, I already ruined that with the banner. I want to send a couple of shout outs to my previous guests here. I had a really great interview with Alyssa LeBeau from Faustini Farms and LeBeau Packaging. Tom and Jen McGinty from McGinty's Magical Meds, also some other Vermont cultivators. Joel Bedard, Full Spectrum Bitch. If you haven't checked out our interview, this guy really just knows his shit here, and it was a pleasure having him on the show. And Nick Heilig. I love to do the artist spotlights. If you haven't checked out some of Nick's art, I really suggest you do so. He's a super talented cat. And the Christian and Jan from Ratu's Cannabis Supply down in Wilmington. And I also do want to do my usual shout outs to what I've got coming up. Tomorrow, I've got an interview with Glenn Anderson, who was the first person I spoke with in Vermont when I started doing this project. Sunday, I've got Brianna Woodward, who's a stand-up comic who also designed my original logo. It's been redesigned by Roxanne Brault, but she's coming on the show on the 10th. On the 12th, I've got In-House Genetics. On the 14th, I've got Tim Blake, who's the founder of the Emerald Cup in California. And on the 17th, I've got Charles Stockill, Charles the Hashishan. And then the 19th, well, we'll do one more. The 19th, I've got Mark Sheldoni, who's from Better Chem Consulting, PhD organic chemist, that I'm super excited to have on the show here. And we got a ton of great shit coming up for you guys. And today, this is an interview that a lot of people wanted me to do. So I tried to I bumped this ahead of my schedule, and I've been trying to coordinate for quite some time. Let's stop fucking around. Boom. It's Noah and Marlena Fishman from Zenbarn Farms. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Happy to be here, man.
Thank you.
Cool. Before we get into anything serious, would you guys mind each sharing a 5-minute life story with us?
Sure.
Yeah, here, and I'm going to put you guys over there. There you go. Yeah.
Sure. 5 minutes. That's a good chunk of time. So I'll start. My background is, of course, we all start from our parents, and my parents always had outreach, doing outreach work in the community, and growing up with that, of course, as well having a special ed teaching background, community and education has just been part of my innate nature, if you will. So Noah and I met when I was going to school down in DC. We met in Chocolate City and moved here together 15 years ago back to his hometown, and continuing with the community aspect that we had started in DC, having a group house with live music, inviting people over for potluck with food, people from all different backgrounds, and enjoying cannabis, of course, was a part of that. Moved here, and I'll take my time because we got 5 minutes. We moved here 15 years ago and then started a community-based farm on our family's property. And from there, ended up gravitating to opening a wellness studio. We realized that healing is not just a daily practice, but also a preventative practice. And we opened our wellness studio, and that ended up evolving into our current music venue and restaurant. And it was great to have the food that we were growing with local community members on our farm. That food started to be part of the menu at our restaurant. Then we navigated to growing hemp, CBD, and started to try out those products at our wellness studio. Got great feedback. And then April of 2020, 4/20, serendipitously, we opened our CBD shop 3 years ago and was able to continue with the holistic aspect of the plant and also what we see as longevity, which is community, music, cannabis, and our daily practices in wellness. And here we are now with Zenbarn, being a music venue, dispensary, and education center.
Yeah, don't jump the gun too much on the CBD shop, because that was going to be my segue to the next part. uh,
Um,
Noah, would you give us hang on, here we go, a 5-minute life story? Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up right here in Waterbury. I'm actually living back full circle on the land that I grew up on. My parents had a small business. I grew up in that environment. My mom had a craft gallery in our home growing up that turned into a little craft gallery on Route 100 and then in Stowe. And my dad was a salesman and eventually joined my mom in the family business. So, grew up here in Waterbury, went to Harwood Union High School. I'm a proud graduate of Harwood, and I was big into soccer. A lot of people know me from my soccer days I really peaked in high school, but I'm reliving that now as doing the 40 plus men's league team. It's a big focus. But my career, I guess, I really wanted to get out of Vermont. Growing up here, I was like, let me get as far away as possible. So I fled at 17 and finished high school in Belize and lived in like this kind of Rastafarian Maroon Creole community in Belize. And those were really formative years. I think in retrospect, that really framed a lot of how I think about like agriculture and cannabis too. I mean, it was very sacred, and we used to hitchhike out into the bush to like harvest, mahogany wood, and I was making drums and, smoking cannabis, and like, it was just a whole cultural experience. And I ended up wanting to work internationally. So I pursued a career doing international development, worked a lot in Africa and the Balkans and all these different places, and ended up kind of being based in DC. And that's kind of where Marlena and I met and fell in love, and, it all went from there. And now, yeah, back home in Vermont. Never thought I would be, but I'm back home here. Been back here. We have 2 great kids here, and we're doing our thing.
And I got a comment here from Nick Woodard from Bushy Beard Cultivation. What up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in again, Nick. I really appreciate your support. And here's Damien DeForge from Legacy Vermont Cannabis. Damien, thank you for tuning in as well. And like I said, I feel like a good place to start this conversation would be with the CBD shop, because, I moved to Morrisville 2.5 years ago, and maybe 3 at this point, but I would always drive by and I would always see the sign out front. And I did stop in for a free CBD joint one day or something, but I'd love to hear you guys take on the CBD business and then sort of transition that into the adult use cannabis business.
Yeah. The CBD pretty much started organically, just like everything else. Having our own functional based needs that were being met from cannabis, and then other people that we knew that needed alternatives to pharmaceutical medicine. My mom being one of those who has had tons of surgery and taking medicine that only amplified her heart problems. So being able to send her CBD care packages that helped relieve her pain really inspired us to go ahead and start a CBD line that was based on our functional needs and what we felt others needed, which is sleep, being able to alleviate anxiety, being able to alleviate pain, and also being able to have feeling like you have the liberty and to come in and talk about those things and help remove the stigma around that.
And it does seem like education was like a big part. I popped into the shop a couple of times before the adult use market, and it seemed like the dude who was there, I can't remember his name, but it seemed like education was a big thing on his mind.
Yeah, that's always what we lead with. One, to, like I said earlier, is to remove the stigma, but also to educate people, because there's so many different benefits, there's so many different cannabinoids, and if you don't lead with it, we're not trying to sell. Cannabis isn't a plant to us that we feel like that we sell. It's something that we educate people on and provide a choice, provide choices to access that.
And so what do you guys got? You got the dispensary license. Do you guys have a cultivation license of any type?
Not, I mean, now we do. We didn't before.
Okay. So let me save that till later then. Yeah.
I mean, we started growing hemp as soon as we could, like, because it was like, wow, we can grow hemp now. So, like, it actually, before the CBD business, we had our venue, which is like the heart of this operation, like the music and events venue that was many things over the years. We've gone through ups and downs and every iteration of what that has been. But it really started as like a wellness studio, restaurant, music venue. And we started doing, like, early on, we started doing these like parties that nobody had ever seen in our area. Like, we did our first year, we did a huge 420 party that was like the town, like, I was getting a lot of pushback from the town on. They were like, what are you guys doing? We burned a huge 20-foot tall cannabis leaf. And that was kind of our first big foray into cannabis, I think, as a business. When everyone's like, you're a restaurant, don't be political, don't do anything, don't push the envelope. And we're like, all right, we're going to do all that. And we started to do CBD. We were the first place in Vermont because we literally called DLC and we're like, hey, we want to do CBD on the menu at the bar, CBD infused beverages. And they were like, we've never had anybody ask us, but I guess technically you can. And we started to do that. And that actually got us some press and stuff, and people loved it. And both infused in the alcoholic ones, but also we started to see, like, a lot of people were like, great, I don't have to drink alcohol, I'll have a CBD NA like mocktail, and they were psyched. And that kind of led us to get more into the CBD as well.
Oh, cool. So you were doing like alcoholic drinks and non-alcoholic options.
Yeah. And this was like 7 years ago, when I think that was really getting that was sort of new in a way at bars. Like, I think now a lot more NA options are coming down. They're becoming more popular, but like it's kind of a new trend out there, surprisingly.
And I was going to say this for later, but you mentioned it, is the events that you guys do out there. On New Year's Eve, I got to come over and I got to smoke a blunt with Inspector Deck from the Wu-Tang Clan. And, that was kind of, I don't get starstruck often, but that was kind of a magical moment for me. He actually handed me a blunt and was like, do you want to hit this? And I was like, yeah, yes, I do. So let's talk about some of the events you do, because it seems like you guys have a lot of great hip hop acts coming through and a lot of great bands coming through. And I've seen a bunch of great shows at your spot there.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing that for 7 years. And it's like, the way, it's kind of crazy. We stepped into this with no experience running a restaurant. Everyone told us it was a bad idea. And then we're like, oh, we're also going to do a music venue. Like, that's even a worse idea. And then we're like, we'll throw a yoga studio on top of that. All these things that are like, nobody makes money at, that it's just like pure like craziness. And somehow we made it work. And I think the somehow is just like incredible community support of people. Like, there wasn't anything like this in Waterbury. And growing up here, it was always kind of a pretty like very mellow town and not much going on. And so I always felt a drive to shake things up. But like the community, as soon as we opened the doors, they were just in, and they were like, we're going to make this, we're going to come out. You do an event, people fill the room. And so I would just say, like, together we've been able to build this like community and culture. And also when we started to book music, it was just like a corner in the room, and we were like, hey guys, can you bring your own sound system? You want to help? Like, we don't know what we're doing. And these artists came out, like some really great local artists, really helped build the scene, and then start telling all their friends. And we've just been able to start to get a reputation for like treating artists well, the hospitality, having good sound. And then like the word just has spread over the years, where it's like a friendly, good venue where the patrons, like the customers, listen and they're respectful and there's a good vibe, and that's what artists want. And they get fed well. We also have a house upstairs so they can stay on site. That's huge for them. And so we've gotten these artists. I never thought we could get like members of the Wu-Tang Clan to Waterbury. That's insane. But like it is not coming. It's coming from just like the vibe over the last 7 years in the community, and they're hearing about us. Like, I get calls from like artists like that are like, hey, I want to come play Zenbarn. I heard it's the spot to play. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like, let's do it. We've had just really amazing like heroes of mine, like Michael Rose from Black Uhuru played. Like, he's been there a couple times and he wants to come back again because he just has a good time. He doesn't need to come to Vermont.
Is this someone you know about? Thirsty Turtle?
Yeah, back in the day, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was another comment from Damien. I thought I'd slap
Well,
that up there.
that was like the bar back in the day in Waterbury that was like kind of a rough and tumble country bar. They had like karaoke, and, you know, it was the Vermont, it was the pub, the Waterbury pub before
So
that.
that wasn't a band. That was a bar.
No, that was a bar. That's
Okay.
like where the reservoir is today.
Hmm.
But
Marlena, I'd like to ask you maybe who some of your favorite acts are that have come through Zenbarn.
Oh, my one of my number one favorites was Itana. Hempress Sativa is another. And then Noah is my memory. I'm always saying I'm trying to get better with names.
the first big band I booked was because it was her favorite band, the Nth Power.
Nth Power, yep.
And I like
the Nth Power. Yeah, I've seen them before.
I harassed Nick Casarino, great local legend, incredible guy who really was one of those people that helped build the venue with us. Like, and I was like, that was one I was like, we don't even have a stage. I think I can figure out the speakers, like, but like, we love you so much and we want you to come play. And at that time I was like, this is a band that would never play our venue. And Nick's like, absolutely, let's do it. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And it was like, it was an incredible show. I think that one really in particular like set us on a course where all these other artists like, oh, Nth Power played there. All right, I want to play there.
That was definitely our first dream come true band.
And Nick Casarino.
Go build a stage. We need to build a stage.
Nick is amazing, and I'm actually have been trying to get him on the show. I hope you listen, Nick. I'd love to have you on. Cool.
And you know, I wish he was still here in Vermont, but he's still here. His presence is felt. So
and they still come back once in a while. Yeah. So I'd like to ask you guys about the business end of the transition to the adult use. And one of the first questions I usually ask people is how the application process went for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, application process was pretty straightforward. I think they made it, you know, we just applied for retail. We had an existing store that was already zoned retail, functioning retail. So for us, I think we had a couple of years of like running a retail shop. So it wasn't a huge lift. You know, the biggest thing we had to do is like get the security plan together and get, you know, we fit up like another aspect of the retail space, but you know, it was relatively painless. You know, so I can't complain too much about the application process on the retail side.
Yeah, I'd just add the application process, be that it was fairly easy, it's kind of misleading to the actual take on to run a business in this industry. A whole nother ball game.
Okay, well, yeah, that's it. I always like to ask people their perspectives because some people said it was a pain in the ass, and some people say you know it wasn't that bad. I'd like to ask you also about maybe sort of the other end of this, like the banking and the insurance. Did you guys have any trouble dealing with that kind of stuff, or was that already in place as well?
Yeah, I mean, no, that stuff's like, it's a royal pain to deal with, and it still is. I mean, it's just like it's all, yeah, insurance. I mean, we're still looking like we're always trying to find ways to like not be royally screwed by this stuff because the cannabis is, you know, you're like, really, that's the quote? Like, there's got to be another way. Like the banking fees, the insurance, the escalated insurance prices, even to get insurance, period. I mean, we're also dealing with this on the venue side. You know, insurance rates are skyrocketing for everybody.
Oh, you've got that whole other liability because you're also serving alcohol at your venue, so you've got to deal with a bunch of insurance. Then,
yeah, insurance is a nightmare, man. It's rough and it's expensive, and you know it. Yeah, so that stuff is not easy, and it took a while, and also it's just prohibitively expensive. So when you get into these businesses, you're like, all right, we're gonna make this work, and then you're like, you start to see how expensive everything is just to like run the operation, and it really starts to eat away at your profits, and it's makes it hard. It's already a hard business, and then retail period is hard. You know, it's just hard to have a door open to the customer. They can come in whenever they want. You always gotta, it's unforgiving. You always gotta be on, and then you add on these other things, the taxation and the insurance and the banking. And I mean, we've worked with, like we were working with VSECU, but then just when we were trying to go get our next bank account, they decided, oh, we're not going to take any more cannabis businesses, even though we had a CBD business.
Oh, you got caught up in the shutdown. I remember that, right? Because they were taking as many as they could, and then it announced that they were not going to take any more. You were in the middle of that shutdown?
Yeah, so we had to we went to Vermont Federal, which has been great to work with. But we got to drive to for a while, for the first phase, they didn't take cash deposits. They were like, we're not going to take any cash. We're like, what? How does that work? And then took them a little while. And then finally, after like few months, they were like, all right, we'll start taking cash deposits. So it's like, that's the craziness. I'm like, how can we not, what are we supposed to do with the cash at that? Like, I mean, but then finally, after 4 or 5 months, it started to level out. We have to drive to make our deposits, and Burlington. That's kind of a pain, but it is what it is. And
the good thing about that drive, though, is stopping at Jamaican Supreme. That's near the airport.
You want to? Tell us about them a little. Is that like a local food truck or a food company or something?
He does have a food truck, but it's a local spot too. That's up there in South Burlington. Open Wednesday through Saturday, 12 to 6. Great food if you have to do it. If you have to do a deposit,
or if you don't have to do a deposit, I bet it's great. I bet it's great if you just rolled up and were hungry.
Right? Yeah, I'm small, but a lot of my maneuvers are based around where there's good food.
Cool. I want to do a shameless slap here. I'm with Noah and Marlena Fishman from Zenbarn Farms. I do want to keep going. I want to ask you about some of the other things that people have raised issues to me with, which is like product registration, testing. I don't know what it's like dealing with that from a dispensary end. Do you guys have to also register products, or is it the cultivators who bring you the products? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
So we do. It's not as intensive as for the manufacturers and the cultivators, but we have to deal with. So we do a lot of deli style. That's been a evolving process for the state to understand how to deal with. So it's been a moving target, over the last year, but I think now it's getting pretty. Now it's like there's a system, we kind of know what to expect, but for a while it wasn't clear who's supposed to register, the grower or the retailer or what. But so that stuff has gotten sorted out. It's taken some time and was at first pretty frustrating, but at the same time, CCB has been pretty flexible with us. They've taken more of the mentality, we're helping you to get to be compliant, and we're working together rather than come in and be like, you've violated this thing and we're going to come down on you. We're all just, as long as you're trying to do it right, they've been easy to work with. But we register those products, the bulk products that we get, and then we put in our bags, and it's been pretty straightforward. But we've had plenty of times when we're waiting, we have manufacturers who are yeah, I'm hoping to get you that product, but I'm just waiting for my approval to come in. And that, I think, seems like it's getting better now, I believe. But it's been, that at times has been painfully slow.
I do want to slap a comment here from Jimmy Darrow. He said, it was a dive. I think he's talking about the Thirsty Turtle. So I just want to, hey, thanks for watching, Jimmy. And there's
we should have a whole show about Thirsty Turtle and history, the Waterbury, downtown Waterbury history.
And here we got Tawheed Chappelle with pictures of plants and smiley faces, and I don't know what the fuck's going on, but thanks for watching. Love deli style. Hey, for people who don't know maybe what deli style is, could you maybe explain the difference?
Yeah. So deli style, that comes from I guess the Jersey in me, and also liking being old school and liking to be able to see and touch or smell what it is that I'm about to purchase. So deli style is you can get your bud by the dollar amount, by the nug, or by the quantity, and actually be able to look at what it is that you're choosing and smell it, look at it under a scope, and then be able to mix and match different strains too. It's not a package, just one straight eighth. If you want to get an eighth, you can get up to an eighth of however many strains that equal to that amount. And the deli style too is also a way that if somebody only has $10 and they want $10 worth of bud, all right, we can give you $10 worth of bud. If they want 50, all right. And then if they want a little sample platter of bud, you're able to do that deli style as well.
So we have literally, you walk in our store, the big, featured displays, some big glass like apothecary jars that are just full of great looking flour that you pull out. You can check it out and get it whatever you want by the gram.
And cool. Maybe you could tell us about the product lines that you offer in your store, and maybe, I don't know, if you've got a list of vendors that you'd maybe like to shout out as well.
Sure. Shout out Altitude Drops. Oh my goodness, her gummies are amazing. Also, shout out to Stone Leaf. If I'm not mistaken, they're the only one making tappies at the moment. And they're small batches, 5 in a jar, all hand pulled, absolutely delicious. And also, I'll shout out VT Treats as well. Shout out to Harry and his wife doing their thing. Anyone you want to? That's on the edible side.
Yeah, I mean, we've got like a bunch of like the flower. I mean, I guess I'd just say the flower. The growers are just crushing it. I mean, I think Vermont, I will put it out there, these guys are growing the best flower in the country. And it's not always about the biggest like buds. It's about the integrity and the quality, and which it's like educating me, because I'm like sitting there like looking at all this flower, and like as you get to know the love that's put into it, and then you smoke it and you try it and you smell it, really, the effects are right there. It's more uplifting, feels better. The terpenes in there are intact and like beautiful. It's like the hand care really shows. We got done a bunch. I would want to mention all of them, so I don't want to like hand cherry pick any of them, but every grower on our menu is just crushing it, I have to say. They're all just doing beautiful work.
Can I ask you guys how you feel about some of these rules, like the THC caps, or maybe the edible limits of, it was 50 milligrams per package, and I think they just raised it to 100. Do you guys have any thoughts on that stuff?
It's complete bullshit. I mean, that's just like, I think what it's coming from is a lack of understanding of the plant. And I don't know what else to say other than I think probably maybe we need to do a better job as an industry to stand up and educate and demand some changes here. But, I think it just doesn't make sense. I know we got to work within the confines of society and the government that runs this stuff. And we barely got this whole cannabis thing passed, legalization anyway. So it's kind of like, all right, we'll take what we can get. But at the same time, 60% cap on concentrates, like, who does that help? I think it hurts a lot more people. I don't know who it helps, and I know a lot of people it hurts. And I think the people it hurts the most are probably folks that really need that high dose, which is probably your folks with real medical conditions. So again, like, what are we trying to do here? I don't really get it, other than I think there are certain groups that are somehow think that that's protecting some people, but I don't think it's a rational argument. I think we need to be able to produce concentrate products, traditional, and we should have hash, and we should have other products that you can consume less of, that's healthier for you, really. That's high dose. There's really no reason for it.
And you mentioned it, boy, people they're trying to protect. And I usually feel like that's the children. You guys have kids. I'd love to hear from you both about how you speak to your children about this issue, because I assume you've had this talk, and you know, I always love hearing from parents how they educate their own kids about this stuff.
Right. Our main message to them has always been that it's a plant. And even with our products at our shop, with our CBD line, we had other herbs incorporated with it to also remind people that there's a variety of herbs that have medicinal benefits, and cannabis happens to be one of those as well. So just always, and just like anything, too much of anything isn't good. So just keeping in mind with them also about how mentioning like how to healthily consume cannabis, how people do use it for medicinal needs, how some might use it recreationally, and just teaching the full scope of the plant.
I think our kids, like, they were helping with the hemp harvest and growing. They've been learning about it. Like, we have a 15-year-old who, 15-year-olds are starting to experiment with stuff. He's not been interested. It's not, I don't see I think that in a way, like, for kids, like when I was 15, I was hiding away smoking weed wherever I could, like, and I was like trying to hide from my parents. I think we have taken an approach of like really just like trying to be open and have lines of communication with our kids, and seems to be working out really well for us. I think that, a lot of kids, like, they get rebellious, they want to do things, but if we can sort of have that ability to communicate, if we can try to be honest, like, we're not going to stop them from doing what they want to do. But,
so you're trying to be honest with kids.
It's a radical idea. It's a radical idea. But
yeah, it's about sharing our stories and experiences and then letting them make their choice. Like, one thing as a former teacher that had me set more boldly into talking about cannabis and not trying to hide my use of it was one of my former students. He had chronic seizures, and he would have a tincture in his sweet potatoes to help relieve his seizures. Went from however many, 12 a day to like 1 or 2 a month.
Wow.
And that's something that his parents were offering him. And it's like, wow, this is...
It's hard to deny that shit. When you see it happen, you're like, come on, there's got to be something to this. All right. I'd like to, and Damien, I see your comments here, and I'm saving that stuff till the end. And I have one more question before I do. Everybody wants to hear about this fucking deal you guys have pulled, but I want to hear about, this is a question I ask everybody. If you could rewrite the legislation, what would you keep? What would you throw away? Or what would you add that's maybe not in there from a business perspective?
Man.
I haven't got enough sleep to even tackle that one. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we kind of hit go on the current reality, and you just like kind of forget, like, what's in the legislation again? But I mean, why are we taxing? Why is cannabis treated as such a rogue, player? I mean, the taxation is way too high. I think it should be taxed like anything else, so that would be a big one.
Marketing.
Advertise. I mean, the fact we can't advertise it. I mean, we can barely advertise it. We have to get it approved every time, like, that's ridiculous. That needs to go.
Down to a sandwich board.
And have you guys dealt with any of the have you tried to run advertising? I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about that. Sorry to interrupt you.
I mean, we kind of like, you get discouraged. Like, it's like we're like flat out busy all the time. I think we haven't advertised nearly as much as we would, because I don't want to even deal with it. I haven't tried to, like, I'm like, okay, I can barely get it together to like produce the ad and try to get into the paper or something. Then now I got to go and like get it approved. Like, we're not ahead enough to like do it. So I just said, like, screw it. We'll just do, like, the way we advertise is we throw big parties and events. That's what we do. So we just do that, and we just like, but I would probably throw some ads out there, but like, I'm not going to go through all that. It's too restrictive.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. Those advertising rules, I think, like, we're going to legalize it, but you can't advertise it? I don't understand that.
Right. So the approach still has to be kind of old school, where the advertisement comes in with the relationship that we build with each guest that walks through our door. And we intentionally refer to them as guests and not customers, because that's what they are to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in the service industry a long time. You don't got to explain that one to me. Yep. Cool. So if that's it, I'd like to transition over to talk about this other story. And, you know, I'm going to do a little screen share here because once again, with the MJ Biz story, Curaleaf exits Vermont with sale of assets to Zenbarn Farms. And I know this is what everyone wants to hear about. I wanted to hear about the rest of your business because we haven't got a chance to talk about this. And I've been trying to get you on the show since we ran into each other in Vegas last year. So, yeah, I'd like to hear what you have to say about this story. And then I have a couple questions, but you know, Damien has a question here too about, can we hear about the campus idea they mentioned, business accelerator ideas, etc. I want to slap that one up there, but I'm going to open the floor up for you guys to just explain this, because I have no idea what's going on, and people have been up my ass for like since this came out in the news. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let me just clarify like what this is and all that, and then we can kind of get into some of the details. But like, so we're acquiring basically Vermont's Curaleaf's Vermont assets, which is, you know, they basically, you know, there was a group that started, I think it was the first medical dispensary or one of the first. Vermont Patients Alliance with this other group, Phytoscience, and there's some really great local people that we know that actually like some of them we met through Zenbarn. Actually, all of them we kind of just like got to know better through Zenbarn.
Is Monique McHenry in there? I believe Monique owns.
Yeah, Olive. It was Olive and Monique and like
cool.
Matt Schrag, and a lot of those guys were like, they started that originally. And, you know, Olive's like a UVM medical doctor. And so like, and they played bluegrass at our place all the time. So we just like were aware.
Oh, they have a band.
Yeah. I mean, they're in different bands, but they're all like great bluegrass players, you know. So we had like a weekly bluegrass night, and Olive was always there. So, you know, we just kind of got to know what they were doing, you know. But basically, that group got bought, I don't know, a few years ago by Grassroots, which was like a Chicago-based kind of like company. And then soon thereafter, I don't know all the details with that stuff, but like kind of unbeknownst, I think, to those original guys, like then Curaleaf came in and bought Grassroots. And so Curaleaf, and that was part of a bigger deal. So Vermont, it wasn't like Curaleaf was like, I want to be in Vermont. I think they just kind of like acquired this as part of a bigger deal. So, you know, all of a sudden Curaleaf owns this thing, and that's more or less been the reality for the last few years or whatever. And we're bringing that entity back to Vermont hands, you know. So we're acquiring, what we're getting is they built out a really beautiful cultivation facility. There's a manufacturing facility right next to
in Middlesex or somewhere over there, right?
Yeah, in Middlesex. Yeah, it's a mixed light. It's like a year-round greenhouse. So you get the best of both worlds, indoor, outdoor. You know, has lights, but it also brings in the sun. Super cool, you know, greenhouse. And then you have the manufacturing facility that can produce, you know, a full array of products. And then they've been running 2 dispensary locations, one in Bennington and one in Montpelier.
Right, and that's like Phyto Care down there.
Yeah, Phyto Care in Bennington, which is medical only. And then we have Montpelier, which has been medical and rec.
And that's Vermont Patients Alliance.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, the acquisition is all that. But the real part of the acquisition that's the most valuable for like a business like ours is the cultivation manufacturing. Because we can only run one dispensary. That's the rules. So we're not like skirting any rules.
Right, and that was the big question that people were throwing at me. Like, how is this going down when they're going to now own like these couple of other dispensaries? When I think the rule is one license type per entity, but I believe if you have an integrated license, did you guys buy out the integrated license? Is that what happened?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's, like in an ideal world, like it's not actually an advantage to have that license. It would be better to have the broken apart, the a la carte licenses. But like just from it was kind of complicated. Like that was the only way we could really do this.
Yeah.
But it's actually more of a disadvantage. Like it's more expensive. There's more rules for the integrated license.
Well, that's what Tim Fair told me. He said it's actually cheaper to buy all the individual licenses separately than to buy the integrated license.
Yeah, the integrated is not. I mean, if I could just break them apart and we could do that separately, I would. But we can't, at least right now. So yeah, so we're gonna basically, our plan is to like, we're gonna keep running the medical only. Those Montpelier and Bennington become medical only. And then our Waterbury location becomes our one rec dispensary. So that's like the structure. And then, I think anybody who knows a little bit about the medical program is that it's just tiny. There's not a lot of patients anymore. Like it needs a lot of help, and so it's really like, it's not like a viable like business just for someone to come and open a medical dispensary right now. But what we are really excited about with that side of things is to try to just be part of a conversation, because I think we can just be at the table and a partner to help figure out what is it going to take to grow and help those medical patients. What's the right solution? So
right, and you just said it's maybe not a viable business, which begs the question, how do you plan to turn it into one? Because, I do see the medical patients dropping off in Vermont. I've seen those numbers at the CCB meetings, and, it seemed like the medical program had a lot of promise at the beginning, and then it has just been slipping. And I'd like to hear from both of you guys on maybe your thoughts on that sentiment.
Well, one thing that we were hearing since acquiring these medical facilities from the bud tenders there and the manufacturers, that there wasn't a connection in the communication of what the patients were needing and what was being made. And for us, that's where we start. We start at the people and then building out on the needs. So that's one of our first approaches to starting to make this more viable, is to actually get products out there that are meeting the needs of what people are asking for.
And can you tell us about, because I've seen this Curaleaf facility out there. It looks like a beautiful greenhouse. Would you guys mind telling us about what you got in this deal? Because that looks like one of the nicest greenhouses in Vermont, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's the big asset. I mean, that's the main thing that we're like acquiring, is that greenhouse. It's a really state-of-the-art, beautifully built greenhouse, which is like, this is not what Curaleaf does. This is a real outlier for them. I think this is part of why they were like, what do we do with this thing? We got this, like, this is designed for like real, like sustainable, organic, living soil type production. It's designed to be like a really like kind of a state-of-the-art sustainable grow method that, it's like you're getting the sun and soil and more natural methods. It's different than your typical indoor, but it's also not outdoor. So, I think it's two side by side, like grow rooms, with a lot of cool like automations in terms of the, how to maximize the artificial versus sunlight and HVAC systems and all that to make it optimized. But it's a greenhouse, it's and then just next door is like the lab and manufacturing.
Can I throw a question at you from Damien?
Yeah.
What tier is the grow, and can it feed your medical and your rec?
Yeah, so the tier, so it's a vertically integrated license, which would be, it allows us to have a tier up. The license allows us to have a tier 5 grow. The actual size is about each greenhouse is about 3,600 square feet. So the actual grow is going to be, 7,200 square feet of, let's say canopy space. So that's the scope of this project. Was there another question?
I think no, that was it. Thanks, Damien. I appreciate you listening.
Oh, will it supply? Yeah, it'll supply us, and we can, we'll build out like some, wholesale also. But yeah, it'll easily supply like our own retail presence.
I'd like to ask you too, if you're retaining any of the previous employees from the last from this acquisition or whatever here.
Yeah, everyone that made it to the end there, under that's currently employed, we're keeping, which we're excited about, because those folks were really like, they had been through a lot. I think, it was a lot of unknown for them for a lot of months, if not even years, and they stuck it through. So we're really committed to like keeping, it's a little bit of a process of like merging the cultures and everything, but like they've got a great crew of people that have been really doing their best. And I think we're excited to leverage that and work with them. And yeah, so everyone's on, and it's been great because we're learning a lot from them. They've been doing this for a while.
And to answer Damien's other question too about the incubator program, I think it was now about 2 years ago, we launched the Cannabis Generation Equity Fund with the mission of being able to provide access from seed to sale for BIPOC people with special needs and those that were formerly incarcerated to be able to access the industry and not just be able to have a business, but be able to gain knowledge on all aspects, even the ancillary. So with this new facility, we want to have a cannabis campus there that pretty much brings in a pool of professional knowledge from all over to help people do that and have a successful brand or just a career in the industry.
So, Damien, I think that answers your question about the campus, the idea, the business accelerator. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in, man. I wanted to ask, yeah, that's cool that you're going to keep their employees on because, like, and first of all, the first thing I thought when I saw this deal was like, oh, Curaleaf is leaving Vermont. Bye. I don't think anyone else is going to be sad about that either. And I've seen some of the commentary around this. I made a post about it. I've seen some of the people talking about this. Some people are very happy. Some people are like, what the fuck is this? But I don't think anyone would sit here and say, I miss Curaleaf. So in a sense, I appreciate this deal. You guys fucking, if you chase Curaleaf out of town, I'll give you 1 bonus point each. Yeah. And yeah, man, it's wild. Here's Damien again. I'm gonna put this up here too. The second half part is currently, as far as I know, rec growers can't sell to medical. That was a question I was gonna ask you. Are you allowed to transfer products between medical and adult use dispensaries? Because I don't remember these rules.
Yeah, we can. I know we can. I don't know if I'm not sure. I like about that, what Damien's asking. Like, I actually thought that we could sell, like, I don't see why we couldn't buy in flower. I may be wrong, but I think we can sell flower for medical. I don't see why we can't.
Right. You just medical and rec, obviously.
Yeah, and I don't remember because I read those rules 2 years ago and it was a minute and I just don't remember all this shit. But that was okay.
Day 4 of like running this business. So we're figuring it all out. But I know like we can move our current inventory products between the two, but like, yeah, I don't see why there'd be any issue with that as long as the guidelines are met in terms of, there's some issues with inventory and product registrations, all that, but like it all can, I believe, be solved.
I got one more question. I'm about out of shit here, guys, and I want to thank you. Hey, hang on. I'm supposed to hang on. Noah and Marlena Fishman from Zenbarn Farms here. I'm supposed to do that every 10 or 15, and I always forget because sometimes I get lost in the conversation. But I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on why Curaleaf might have left Vermont.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear this isn't like a fit for them. This doesn't make even the way this facility was set up, it's an outlier for them. It's not nearly the scale they do, not even close. This is a small, it was a crazy process. Like, we're this tiny little business. We're sitting there with like Curaleaf and their team of lawyers, and they're like, this was not a big deal for them. They do these deals all the time. This was like a huge deal for us. We're sitting there like trying to figure this out. And they're like, the hardest thing was just getting them to give us the time of day to figure this out. Like, this was not a big priority for them. I think they saw probably, I don't know, a couple of years ago, the writing on the wall, this was not their market. It just wasn't a big interest for them. Yet they also didn't really, what's the motivation to really come out here and really try to figure it out? It wasn't a high priority. So yeah, I think that they knew a while ago that they wanted to find some like a good local business that they could work a deal out to hand this off to. So it makes sense. It's not what they do. And so yeah, it's sort of a serendipitous thing. That's kind of what we tend to do, is just sitting there, and we're like open to opportunities, open to conversations. And most of the stuff from Zenbarn to the CBD store, everything, most of it has kind of fallen into our lap, just because it's like when you're around the hoop and you might grab one here and there. So nothing too complicated about it other than that.
Yo, I think I also forgot to ask Marlena. I wanted to ask you about the social equity component of the bill. I think I fucking glossed over that earlier, but I was really curious to hear your thoughts on that and feelings, if you have any.
Yeah, my approach to equity is always communicating with the people that I know and what I see my own needs are. So there were some things about it that are great that allow people to access. There's things that still need to be improved. And my approach is to just create in what it is that I think are the needs, which is why we're trying to do this cannabis campus. On the short of it.
Cool. Well, I'm going to just do one more shameless slap. Noah and Marlena Fishman, Zenbarn Farms. I'm out of shit. So I always leave a little space at the end for my guests. If you guys if we missed anything, or if you have any shameless plugs or shout outs that you want to give, now is the time. Thank you guys for being here with me tonight. I really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks a lot, Caleb. This was a lot of fun. And, we're just getting going. So I would just say, like, we're here, we're part of this community, not just cannabis, but just like building community. That's what we do. We'd love to invite anybody to come out to a show and like hang out at Zenbarn. We're usually there, and like that's our like home base and community. And also, like, we're happy to show this to folks in the industry that want to see the facility and like get to know it. We're also going to be offering like some of the things that we can really do for folks like other growers, other producers, is we can help, we have extraction, we can help create products with folks. We're going to be providing services for the cannabis community, because I think what we see out there is there is a real demand and need for more, like extraction, let's say, and things like that. We've got an incredible team that we're putting together for that stuff. So we're really excited just to like, be part of this and create great products and just make Vermont an incredible place to come and experience best cannabis in the world. You know, that's what we're about. So yeah, that's probably all I got for shameless plugs.
That will suffice.
Noah and Marlena Fishman, Zenbarn Farms. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, reminding you that the devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print. Thank you.